Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. It's Pont de Politique once again. Uthando lwethu kadlanga umuntu ungwawuyengwayo kamalinge undima kankumbuzo welcomes you to yet another episode of Pont de Politique live streaming that is taking place today. It's one of those days, it's one of those Sundays, it's one of those important afternoons that we are having another episode and another discussion point that we will be talking about this afternoon. And I want to welcome you all for coming through to our program and for being a good people who are constantly watching with us these particular sessions that we tend to be having. And if you are new into this platform, remember, here is our Pont de Politique information at YouTube. We're available at Pont de Politique. Please make sure that you subscribe because we want to increase the numbers and to make sure that there's a lot of people who are available in the conversation and they don't miss out on any matters that we are discussing on this platform. And also, we're available on Twitter. Make sure that you retweet. Make sure that you retweet, you like our platforms, and you ensure that you participate also in our conversations on Facebook. We are equally available there, and on Instagram, TikTok. We are available for you. In all of these platforms that we are using and all of these platforms that we are streaming on, we're pleading with you to ensure that you are following us and you're liking our information. And if you want to follow me personally, on Twitter, I'm at ODGuy1. At ODGuy1, I'm available on Twitter. And you can also follow me on Facebook on Thando Lwethu Kadlanga, Thando Lwethu Dlanga on Facebook. So today we are going to be talking about something that is close to my heart, something that is that I love so much, and that over the past many years has proven to be one of the impediments in our socio-economic rights in South Africa, especially for the majority of the Black and African students. We are going to be talking about education, funding, and the issues that are related to that. But also, I want to ensure that the conversation, because it is not only limited to that particular platform or to that particular environment, it can link to other. It can link to other issues, as I have said, that it relates to socio-economic rights and needs of the majority of the South Africans. Over the past few years, since I know that many people might have seen this important aspect of education, accessibility, finances, and all that being something that was brought into the fore for many during the Fees Must Fall, from the Rose Must Fall up until the Fees Must Fall movement. But this type of demand or in the socio-economic rights dates back to as early as 1970s and also as early as 1980s, 1990s, and we are still talking about it today. When we ask some of our brothers and sisters and our parents, they will tell you, we have been in this fight for many years. I know there was a group that I was involved in and I'm still involved in. We called it Walk for Access. We had been part and parcel of a people that were raising funds for university students, where we would walk from various cities and to Pretoria. That organization was established in 2019, but unfortunately in 2023 it could not participate in that fundraising project. But it does not mean that that project has been abandoned. I'm just trying to show that there are other people who were part and parcel of the projects where they seek to ensure that the majority of Black students are able to have access to education without having this particular impediment, which is the finances. And that is what we are going to be talking about this afternoon. Today, or this evening, we are joined by our guest, Dr. Lunga Mantashe. Dr. Lunga Mantashe is the president of WSU Convocation. He has been part and parcel of a group of people who had come up with a project that ensures that there is a fight against Walter Sisulu, either alumni or graduates' fees. Then they would ensure that they organize and raise funds to ensure that they pay for those funds, and then that the university students, WSU alumni and WSU graduates are able to therefore get their academic results, and making sure that they are part and parcel of the working stream. And there are other things that we are going to hear from him. Dr. Mantashe, president of WSU Convocation, good evening, my brother and friend, and thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, good evening, Tando, and good evening to your viewers. It's been quite a long time. I missed the platform.
Yes, it's been quite a long time since we've been here. But nonetheless, you are here now, and I'm sure that the majority of the students that you are leading, and also the alumni that you are leading, they will be watching with us this afternoon. In your term as the president of WSU Convocation, which you had been elected in last year, there are various objectives that you wanted to achieve, which you have outlined as your vision. Can you please help us, just take us through, so that for a person who has not heard them, a person who doesn't know the vision of Dr. Mantashe as the president of the Convocation, what is the vision of Dr. Mantashe as the president of the Convocation in this particular term?
So the vision, quite frankly, and to put it very simply, is that we want to empower Walter Sisulu University graduates during our term. Secondly, what we want to do is we want to raise funds to clear graduate debts. In other words, for all graduates that are unable to pay debts that they owe the university, we are putting up a project that is going to enable us to be able to pay some of those debts. So that's the vision that we have with respect to graduate debt. The third element of our vision includes the brand of the university. And we know that the brand of the university hasn't always been taken seriously in South Africa and in the rest of the world. We want to project the university for what it truly is, as the university of access, an institution responsible for the provision of access to education for millions and thousands of the people in the Eastern Cape primarily, and people across the country. So these are the three key elements of our vision: the empowerment of graduates, the elimination of the graduate debt, and the branding of the institution. Put simply, these are the key elements.
Wonderful. Thanks, Dr. Mantashe. And I want to also remind the viewers, as we are engaging in the conversation, please make sure that you send your questions and your comments. As we are talking, we will be taking them live, because it is important. We want to make this an interactive conversation. I want to pick up on your last pillar before we can go into any other one. The last pillar, over the past few years, the university has been reported negatively in the public and mass media. We know that there was a story of an NSFAS in relation to NSFAS and a university student. Seemingly, there was a wrong payment of money paid to a particular student, and the matter has then went to court, and then it is in the appeal process. And after that, then there was an issue about the accreditation of the university of some degrees or some qualifications in the university. But also at the same time, over the years, especially for you who has spent so much time in that particular university, the issue of constant strikes and that are taking place every year in the university. Now, how do you want to ensure that you are creating a better projection of the university? And also, what do you say to the media? Because sometimes the choice of the stories that media tend to move with, they tend to take a story that is negative. How do you then address all these elements?
Yeah, I mean, so let me just start from the last leg of your question. Last week, we actually held a press briefing to try to inform the media about the exact circumstances of what's happening at Walter Sisulu University. Part of the things that we indicated there was the fact that the media needs to stop misreporting and misrepresenting the facts. The media has a responsibility to look for the facts and to report on the facts all the time. That's the only way the media could have its own integrity intact. Whenever the media misreports or inaccurately reports about Walter Sisulu University, it adds into the denting of the institution's image. And we think that that's a very powerful way of destroying an institution. It's when you report negatively about it. Secondly, we wanted to say that when people report about the institution, they don't report about the most important aspects of the university. So, for example, nobody knows, I mean, hardly anyone knows that the university has a very important flagship program in the medical faculty, which is one of the leading faculties across the continent, where doctors are brewed, very important doctors that are well respected in South Africa. And I could give you an example here of a doctor like Dr. Tebelele, who is very popular for his prowess and ability to deal with issues related to, some people call him Dr. Wempempe, you know, and that's just one example. And there are many other doctors across the Eastern Cape who are responsible for the health of the province and the health of the entire society. And so that's a flagship program that's offered at WSU at a highly complex level, highly reputational level, highly respected across the continent, as I have been saying, with an infrastructure of the highest state of the art, actually. And these are things that people don't know much about. They report the negative stuff. They don't report the good stuff, for example, about the fact that the university is turning itself around. And that it has received good reports quite recently in terms of the audit report. In the past, there were terrible results with respect to the auditing process, but now these things have changed. And so we think that people don't follow up on the institution and try to find out how it has been handling issues that the media may have reported. So the media reports the negative and it never follows it up. It leaves the dent at that point in time. So part of the work that we want to clean the name of the institution, because the name of the institution is our name, unfortunately, whether we like that or not, because it reflects on us as members of society who studied in it.
And thanks for this, because it is important, and I'm glad that you had addressed this particular matter with the media themselves, so that they do not seem like they would be attacked, or they are being attacked by the convocation on the basis of these things, and also to put the facts across the board. And thanks for that clarification, Dr. Mantashe. And I want you to then, because over the past few weeks, you started by having and I saw that there was a chapter AGM that was taking place in Gauteng, and then there was a chapter AGM that was taking place in the Eastern Cape, even though I have not seen on the other provinces these movements, these developments that are taking place, which is something that I think you might address if you feel it is important. But within those AGMs, you have come up with a project of hitting on the debt of the graduates at the university. Can you just take us through that, the thinking? How did this thing come about from the convocation, and what are then its elements? What are its focus areas, so that we can be able to be going deeper into it as to the amounts and all of that. Just the framework first, then we can be able to understand everything else from there.
Yeah, so I mean, historically, I myself was a student at the same university. I had been at the level of the SRC at the time when I was a student leader, and we came to know the problems of finance, that the problems of finance of this institution, Walter Sisulu, have a lot to do with student debt and graduate debt. So, for example, if you don't solve the problem of the graduate debt, then effectively you cannot solve the problem of the financial health of the institution. Again, so there were two options for the institution. The institution could turn students away and say, you can't study here because you don't have the money to study. Or the institution could admit the student without necessarily that student paying the money. The consequence of that is that the student is too poor to pay, and the university would feel that the student needs to study. And so the student gets into the system with half the amount they need to pay for registration, or even lower than that. I mean, that used to be the case in our era. So what that had done was that it had increased the student debt to the levels that are so high that it would be, sad if I told you, but I should tell you that we are sitting with a debt of 1.3 to 1.4 billion, in 2022 in December, and some of the students in that category, it's a student debt and it's a graduate debt. Where the student debt is concerned, you have a debt of over 800 million. And where the graduate debt is concerned, you've got one of just above 600 million. And you can see that some of the students and graduates who owe the debt, they owe as little as 1,000 rand. In some cases, as 2,000 rand. In another case, as 5,000 rand. But in the worst case, you have a student, for example, and a graduate who owes the institution about 500,000 rand. Now, it tells you that the institution had allowed that student to come in and study for a full degree period. And now the student has graduated and needs to get a certificate to be able to go and apply for the job. Now, the student is unable to get the certificate because the university says that we can't give you the certificate because you owe us 500,000 rand. So how can we pay? How can we give you? Because if we give you, you're going to run away from us and we can't get you back to come and pay this debt. So then this situation gets us into what I call a catch-22 situation. You want a certificate to go and look for the job, and the university is keeping your certificate because it wants you to pay the debt. And that's why we got into this crisis of the debt trap. The debt trap then means that the university neither gets its money, nor do you get your certificate. Ultimately, if I were to use a more correct bourgeois language, naturally then it means that it's a lose-lose situation. Nobody wins. Now, how does the institution get to pay back the 1.4 billion debt over a period of time if the student can't go get the certificate and queue for the job? That's been the catch-22 situation. And that's where Convocation says, we are going to come in and we are going to try to fundraise, because the university is undergoing a serious financial strain and it's forced by various circumstances outside itself. So, for example, the budget cuts did take place in 2023, early 2023. So the government cut the budget for higher education across the board. What that meant is that if the government used to give Walter Sisulu University 10 rand, it was now giving Walter Sisulu 9 rand. Now, where is Walter Sisulu going to get the next 1 rand? It's not going to get it anywhere else, because the second problem is that the university, we found, has no form of a third stream income. It only gets income, which is a third stream income, in the form of 1%. In other words, for every 10 rand the university has, only 1 rand comes from an externally funded source. And about 7 rand of that 10 rand comes from NSFAS. Now, if NSFAS cuts the budget, then the university gets in trouble, precisely because many of the students belong in NSFAS. At Walter Sisulu, for example, about 72% of the student are funded by NSFAS. Now, that is 72% of over 30,500 students who were enrolled, for instance, in 2022. So usually on a year-to-year basis, Walter Sisulu registers about 31,000 students. So it varies from year to year. So what this tells you, Tando, and your viewers, is the magnitude of the crisis that we are dealing with, is the deepness of the crisis. And this crisis at Walter Sisulu is an indication of an even bigger crisis in South Africa and across the world, by the way. So the graduate debt problem is a big, big problem. It is also an obstacle to job seeking. It is also an obstacle just to the idea of having your own certificate. And sometimes students in the past not even to graduate because they couldn't pay the money. Just imagine you studied for 3 or 4 years and suddenly you are told you can't graduate simply because you owe the university 1,000 rand. So that's the problem that we're dealing with. I'll give you just one last example just to break stuff down for you. Out of the over 23,000, close to 24,000 students and graduates who owe the university money, you have a chunk of 1,617 who owe the university less than 1,000 rand. And that's a total to 1 million rands. That's total close to 700,000 rands. Right now, if we are asking for this project and we're putting this project in place, we are saying this project necessarily has a social impact perspective in it, because what it does is to help a quantitatively high number of 1.7 students just by getting less than 1 million rands from these funds. And the stats tell us that if one person loses a job in South Africa, 4 more people suffer. This also tells you that if one who needs to get a job can't get that job, 4 more people are more likely to continue to suffer because the certificate of the sibling is still held at the university. So this is a big social crisis. It's not merely an institutional crisis. I'll just pause there.
I see. So all these elements that you are drawing, you looked at the snowball effect of this. And when we talk about the snowball effect, therefore, I just want to go back to the university, because the crisis that is caused by these graduates' debts, it creates a crisis for the university finances. And also then these university finances have an impact on even the running of the infrastructure of the university at first. Secondly, the output of the university. Thirdly, it can also have an impact on the salary base of the university. But also, on the other hand, there are other universities that have got budget for public relations. And in your case, as the president of Convocation, probably your university doesn't even have those funds to ensure that there is a public relations budget to protect the institution's image, and therefore it becomes easy for it to be predated by these negative aspects of the media. How does then this affect? Now let's talk to the institution without talking about outside of the social. Talk about the institution itself, because I don't want to act as if we are attacking the institution or the institution is not affected from inside. What are the things that you've identified that have happened within the institution that created this that are as a result of this problem of this financial crisis of the university?
Yeah, so there are many deeper problems. I mean, as you put it, first of all, it's not the fault of the university that it is located in the Eastern Cape, where there's also a big problem of unemployment and poverty. And so it's not the problem of the university. It is actually an inherited problem of apartheid and post-apartheid, and sometimes the failure of government policy to address the funding problems of higher education in general. So that's the problem. So institutionally, one of the problems that you have is that if the university's finances are not on a healthy ground, right? You can't increase salaries of workers, for example, because you depend on mostly government money. And you also depend on people who pay for themselves. And the people who pay for themselves can't pay tuition fees of 120,000 Rand per annum, which is the usual average. Because, for example, just to pay for residences, you would have to pay over 30,000. And to pay for tuition, you probably have to pay just for over that. And then you have to pay for textbooks, and then you have to pay for this, and you have to pay for that, and you have to pay for that. So the money is just too little to be able to pay the workers. So the workers would then usually get increases that are less than the inflation rate. So if the inflation rate sits at 6.7% and the workers only get a 5% increase, that's the problem. But the second problem is that the institution is constrained because it cannot increase fees in the way that it would like to do, precisely because if the university increases fees beyond a certain measure, there would be problems, right? There would be protests because students would not accept that position, right? Understandably so, because the students are calling for free education, and that's actually a genuine call. We all want free education to be implemented across the board, because if you have that, then you could potentially have government guaranteeing to pay all the tuition fees, and therefore there's no need for a debate about going on a strike, because why go on a strike if the education has been properly funded? And so there are big institutional ripple effects. The other effect is that what you have is that you tend then to have a budget deficit problems. In other words, the university would be forced necessarily by the circumstances to have to pay to have less money to pay for the many things that it needs to pay for. In other words, the university budget may, for example, be decreased from a 10 rands to 8 rands. Now, where will the 2 rand come from to constantly pay for the things that the university was paying for in the previous years? So that's the problem. So that's how big the problem is, because what it means is that the university has got 1.4 billion rand in cash that is not in its coffers. This is the money that is in the pockets of the debtors, the people that owe it. But there's no money in the pocket of the people that owe the university Tando, because the people that owe the university money don't have the money in their pocket to pay it. Now, where is the money? There is no money. The student does not have the money. The government does not have the money. The university does not have the money. So the money then remains within the business community, within the corporate sector. And that is the sector that needs to be brought on board, because unfortunately we live in a capitalist setup, and in a capitalist setup, the economic direction is not determined by a government, it is determined by the private sector. And these are the people that hold most of the billions of rands in the country. And these are the people that need to be brought on board, at least in this context, in this bourgeois societal context. These are the people that need to, help in the situation.
And thanks for clarifying those, and how this element frustrates the entirety of the university. Now, I want to ask our viewers at home that are watching with us, if you've got questions or comments that you want to put across to Dr. Mantashe, who is the president of WSU Convocation, please put them across, or any comments that you want to put, ensure that you put them across so that we can be able to put them on to Dr. Mantashe. Dr. Mantashe, let's go now to the project that the convocation has embarked on. It is the project of raising money. It is the project of ensuring that you want to solve this small aspect of the problem, even though it's not going to solve the entirety, but this small aspect. Tell me, what have you done? Because it seems like you went around, you had a project where you organized a crowdfunding, and there was one AGM that took place in Gauteng, and you raised a prominent or a large amount of money. Talk us through that, and tell our viewers, and including the alumni and any other person who might be interested, about the project itself and what you have achieved thus far.
Yes. So just to repeat the critical point, what the convocation of Walter Sisulu University is trying to do is to raise as much money as possible in order to eradicate the 1.4 billion debt, 1.4 billion rand debt at WSU. Our intention is to get as much money to clear this debt. In clearing this debt, we are allowing graduates who otherwise could not pay for themselves, who are deprived of an opportunity to go to the job market, to chew just like everybody else, just like the millions who are unemployed, but to chew at an equal advantage with the next student from WITS, from UCT, from UOFS, from UP, etc. We want to give our own graduates that very opportunity that they are denied. Because you have to understand the consequences, Tando, and the consequence is quite dire and big. One of these consequences is that if Tando is chewing with Mantashe in the job market, Tando has his certificate, Mantashe does not have his certificate. When Tando submits his CV, it has his certificate. When Mantashe submits his own CV, it does not have his certificate. Who will the employer potentially likely hire? They will likely consider Tando before Mantashe. That's just a fact. And so you would have to have something extraordinary for the employer to want to wait for you to send a confirmation that you actually did graduate, because in the first place, the employer does not even know that you graduated. And that itself is a big problem. And so we then intended to have this project. And so far, we launched the fund. We call it the Graduate Debt Clearance Fund. We launched the fund at Golf Club East London on the 10th of March 2023. We've launched this project and we invited the business community, but we invited also the stakeholders from inside the institution. And we've invited even those who do business with the university, because we think that everybody has got a role to play. A child belongs to a village and a university is just but a part of that village. On that day, we raised we've raised around 40 million rand from various sources. Some of those sources were business, some of them were government of the Eastern Cape, some of them were just individuals who just put money in, and some of them were the university stakeholders like the unions that have pledged to assist in this process, including the SRC, and we must be very thankful for the help of the SRC in this regard, because sometimes the SRCs just take their monies and do prize and just eat the money and go to the loo to release the money, and the money is gone. But we think that the SRC has done a responsible thing also to contribute to this fund. We have also taken from a small portion of the budget of convocation to put into this fund. And usually this is money that we would use to go around the country doing convocation work, promoting the institution, and going out of the country, building chapters. To go around the country doing convocation work. So that is the work that we've undertaken. We've raised around 40 million, and this 40 million is in the form of cash values. In other words, liquid cash. It's also in the form of non-cash values. I'll give you an example of what is a non-cash value form. For example, the University Council said that it was going to engage in what it called a debt forgiveness program. This program would be to the value of 1 million. And what this program would do is that it would allow a graduate to come and get a certificate and be forgiven from paying that debt to the value of 1 million. And secondly, other cash values will be paid over a period of 5 years. We have some of the sitters, for example, that have come in and have said, look, we will give you 1 million for the next 5 years. That's have come in and have said to be able to pay annually all those graduates to the value of that much. We also have had institutions like AVBOB that have come on board, and we have created a long-lasting relationship with AVBOB. For example, tomorrow, we've sent a delegation to Gauteng, to the head offices of AVBOB, to sit down and look at how AVBOB is going to assist in this particular project, to put money in as part of their corporate social investment, because we basically ambushed them this time around because we just consulted them a little bit late. So they will be putting the convocation in their budget for next year.
Okay.
We've had institutions like the MICT CETA that has put in 3 million to assist people in the ICT space, and various others. We've also, and I just want to say that post that process, we have also just received at least a commitment to provide bursaries to the value of 6 million from one of the CETAs. What that does is that it allows the problem of the debt to be minimized, because then the students to the value of 6 million funded at 120,000 per year will not have a debt problem.
Yes.
For you to have a debt problem, you must have an unfunded student in the first place as a result of top slicing by universities, as a result of changing funding formula, as a result of sometimes bad policies and that type of thing.